On a stormy evening with the sky turning an ominous gray much earlier than usual, I found myself home alone. The windows rattled as gusts of wind hurled rain against them, and every once in a while, the lights would flicker, threatening a blackout. My parents were out of town for the weekend, and I, Alex, had the whole house to myself. At 17, I was used to having the place to myself occasionally, but tonight, the storm made it feel less like freedom and more like a scene from a horror movie. As I settled into the living room with a blanket and my laptop, my phone buzzed from the coffee table. Expecting a message from a friend or maybe a weather update, I grabbed it only to see an unknown number lighting up the screen. Hesitantly, I answered. "Nice blue hoodie you've got on, Alex," the voice cooed, a whispery rasp that sent a chill down my spine. "Oh, and those ripped jeans. Quite the fashion statement for a night in." Frozen, I glanced down at my outfit, exactly as the caller had described. How could they know? I was alone, wasn't I? My heart pounded, and the storm outside no longer seemed like the biggest threat of the night. As the storm intensified outside, my phone became a beacon of terror. Each call was like a clap of thunder, unexpected and jarring. The voice, unnervingly calm, would reveal details only someone watching closely could know. "I like how you moved the vase on the windowsill to see the rain better," the voice would comment. Or, "You really enjoy that old rock band, don't you? Turning up the volume to drown out the storm." The calls didn't stop. They wove into my evening like the wind howling through the cracks, each one leaving me more helpless. I tried to act normal, pretending not to be affected, but panic gnawed at me with sharp, insistent bites. This person, this voice, was turning my solitude into a spectacle, me into an unwilling participant in their twisted game. "You're quite good at this, Alex. Guess who I am yet?" the stalker would tease. I could hear the smile in their voice, a sound that didn't match the cold, serious game they were playing. Each hint they dropped seemed to be from someone who had to be nearby, watching my every move through the rain-streaked windows. I felt exposed, like a character in a story where the next page could bring anything, most likely something dreadful. Trying to maintain a shred of rational thought, I paced through the house methodically, double-checking each lock on the doors and windows. The storm had reached a fever pitch, its howls almost drowning out my own heavy breathing. Each window presented a blurred view of the outside world, distorted by the relentless rain. Still, I could not shake the feeling of being watched, of eyes tracing my every step. In a moment of eerie quiet between the gusts, my phone pinged with a new message. It was from the same unknown number, but this time, it wasn't just a voice over a call. It was a picture message. My fingers trembled as I opened it, revealing a photo of me, taken just moments ago, standing by the living room window. The angle was disturbingly precise, as if the photographer had been nestled in the bushes just in front of the house. Panic surged through me, my earlier attempts at calm completely dismantled. I dialed Chris, my voice shaky as I spoke. "Chris, someone's watching me. They're taking photos from outside. I don't know what to do." Chris's response was immediate, his voice a comforting contrast to the chaos around me. "Stay calm, Alex. I'm coming over. We'll figure this out together." He suggested I gather any tech I had that could help us pinpoint the stalker's location, reminding me of my knack for gadgets and how we once rigged an old phone to become a makeshift security camera. While waiting for Chris, I remembered an app I'd used for a school project that could trace incoming calls. As I set it up, it worked quickly, displaying a map pinpointed with the location of the last call. It was shockingly close, just at the edge of our neighborhood. Chris burst through the door, rain-soaked and breathless. "Got anything?" he asked, shaking off the chill. I showed him the map on my screen. "They're nearby," I said, my voice tinged with both fear and anger. We quickly devised a plan, leveraging my collection of tech gadgets. We set up motion sensors near the windows and connected them to my laptop, which would alert us if anyone approached. "If they try to get a closer shot, we'll know," I explained, positioning the sensors to cover the most vulnerable points. The silence of our anticipation was shattered by a shrill ping from the laptop. The motion sensor at the back door had triggered an alert, Heart pounding, we cautiously approached the window overlooking the backyard. Through the rain-streaked glass, we caught sight of a figure cloaked in a dark hoodie, unmistakably the silhouette of someone trying to stay hidden. "Ryan?" Chris muttered in disbelief as the figure turned slightly, revealing a familiar face in the flash of lightning. Ryan, a former classmate who had often clashed with me over academic rankings and accolades, was the last person I expected. Without confronting him directly, I picked up the phone as it started to ring again. "Why are you doing this, Ryan?" The voice that came through was tinged with bitterness and fatigue. "You always got everything, Alex. Awards, attention. I just wanted you to feel a little of the fear I live with every day," Ryan confessed, his words laced with jealousy and a desperate craving for acknowledgement. He hung up abruptly, leaving us with the echo of his words and the realization of how deep and dark his feelings had gone. The storm outside seemed to pause, as if giving space for the gravity of his admission to sink in. With Ryan's confession still hanging heavy in the air, Chris and I wasted no time calling the police. As we relayed the events of the evening, a mixture of relief and somber reflection washed over us. Sitting in the now quiet living room, we discussed how quickly envy can corrupt, turning it into something dark and frightening. The ordeal had exposed a raw, unsettling truth about human nature and our own vulnerabilities. Just as the last echoes of our conversation faded, the unsettling tranquility of the night was pierced by another call. With a hesitant hand, I picked up the phone. The voice that met my ear was cold, calculated, and distinctly not Ryan's. "Well done on catching your little decoy," it cooed, a hint of amusement threading through the words. A chill ran down my spine as the realization dawned on me. Ryan was just a pawn in a much larger, more sinister game. "But don't think this is over, Alex. It's far from it," the voice continued. And then the line went dead, leaving a haunting silence in its wake. The realization that someone else had been orchestrating the night's terror, using Ryan as a mere distraction, settled heavily upon us. Chris and I exchanged a look, understanding that the threat was far from over. The storm had passed, leaving in its wake a deceptive calm. But the real storm, the one revolving around our unseen watcher, was just beginning to brew. As I pulled up to the sprawling remote house, a sense of unease prickled at the back of my neck. It was more luxurious and isolated than I had imagined from the photos. The couple, the Richardsons, were waiting to give me a tour before their month-long trip abroad. Mr. Richardson showed me the high-tech security systems, which he explained with a hint of pride. Cameras covered every angle of the exterior, and sensors lit up every entry with a beep. "You'll be safe as houses here, Emily," he assured me with a smile that didn't quite reach his eyes. Then, Mrs. Richardson mentioned the attic. "Just some old family belongings we never sorted out," she said casually, but her quick glance towards the ceiling suggested it was more than just clutter. As they finished showing me around, I couldn't help but feel intrigued by what was hidden upstairs. Yet, the sprawling emptiness of the place, coupled with its seclusion, set my nerves on edge. I was alone, truly alone, in a house that held secrets even its owners seemed to avoid. One rainy evening, curiosity got the better of me, and I ventured into the attic. The air was thick with the scent of old paper and forgotten memories. Boxes were stacked haphazardly, and amidst these, I found a small dust-covered chest filled with letters and black and white photographs. The letters were yellowed with age, the handwriting elegant but shaky, revealing a passionate yet turbulent history between the homeowners and some long-lost relatives. It was like peeling back layers of a life I was never meant to see. As I sat cross-legged on the floor, absorbed in these revelations, a sudden gust of wind made me shiver. It was then that I heard the soft thud of something hitting the floor below. Nervously, I descended the attic stairs to find a note lying on the doormat, the script eerily similar to what I had just been reading. It read, "Do you know who you're house-sitting for?" The implication of the note, paired with its timing, sent a chill down my spine. How could a stranger know what I had just discovered, unless they had been watching, waiting for the right moment to instill fear? As the storm outside raged, a storm of dread began to brew within me. Each day brought a new note, more menacing than the last, each referencing tiny details from the letters and photographs I had touched. One note commented on a faded photo of a woman with a stern face. "She knew how to keep secrets, do you?" Another asked about a specific line from a letter dated back to 1972, questioning whether I agreed with the harsh judgments passed in it. My hands trembled as I read each new message. Who was watching me? Who knew these intimate details of a family I was only temporarily a part of? I was unable to shake the feeling of eyes on me, invisible yet palpable. I decided to dive into the house's sophisticated security system, hoping to catch the intruder on camera. With the couple's permission, I accessed the feeds, scanning hours of footage for any sign of trespassers. But there was nothing. The cameras captured only the windswept trees and the occasional small animal scurrying by. My anxiety mounted as I considered the possibilities. Could someone have tampered with the security system? Were the cameras merely for show, disabled by someone who knew them well enough to evade detection? Sleep became elusive, each night longer and more filled with shadows than the last. I jumped at the smallest sounds, a testament to the growing paranoia that clutched at my mind. Desperate for answers, I revisited the security footage, watching the same clips over and over, hoping I had missed something, a clue, anything. But still, nothing appeared. The isolation of the house felt like a trap. I remembered a set of compact surveillance cameras that a friend had lent me before the couple departed, initially intended for monitoring wildlife on hikes. In a spur of determination, I placed these cameras around the front and back doors, places the house's own system seemed to neglect. The very next night, my phone buzzed with a motion alert from one of the new cameras. Heart pounding, I checked the feed and caught a fleeting glimpse of a figure at the edge of the porch light. A woman. She was placing another note. I paused the video, staring at the screen. Her face was only partially visible, but it struck a chord of recognition. Rushing to the attic, I sifted through the photographs I'd found days earlier. There she was, a younger version in a black and white photo labeled Agnes, summer 1991. Curious and alarmed, I took to the internet, digging through social media and old records for any mention of her. Hours later, I uncovered a forum discussing the mysterious disappearance of a local housekeeper named Agnes, who had worked for a wealthy family and vanished without a trace 20 years ago. The pieces began to fall into place, but with each discovery, a deeper unease settled in. Agnes was connected to this house, to its secrets. But why had she returned now, and what did she want with me? Suddenly, the shattering of glass pierced the night, the sound reverberating through the hallways. I bolted upright, terror seizing me. Agnes had made her way inside. Creeping down the hallway, I could hear her muttering to herself, a mix of anger and desperation in her voice. "They won't erase me. Not again. Not ever," she hissed, the sound chilling me to the bone. I realized she believed I was part of some imaginary plot to deny her existence and her past with the family. Gathering my courage, I dashed to the security panel in the living room. My fingers flew over the buttons, activating the silent alarm and locking down certain parts of the house. The layout, once cumbersome and confusing, now offered me an advantage. I knew the maze of corridors and hidden doors well, secrets of the architecture that Agnes might not remember. Finally, I made it to the safe room the homeowners had shown me. As I sealed the door, Agnes's distorted screams echoed through the house, her words melding into a cacophony of rage and madness. I awaited the arrival of the police, my breath shallow, trying to silence the fear that clamored for my attention. The wail of sirens finally cut through the tense silence of the night, a sound that brought with it a flood of relief. The police arrived swiftly, their presence marking the end of the nightmare. Agnes was arrested without further incident, her rage dissipating into confused mutterings as they led her away. In the quiet aftermath, I sat wrapped in a blanket, a cup of tea trembling in my hands as I processed the evening's terror. The ordeal had peeled back the layers of a story more complex than I could have imagined. Agnes's life, intertwined tragically with this house, driven to madness by unresolved grievances with the homeowners. Her perception of reality had been so distorted by rejection and invisibility that it had propelled her into violence. Reflecting on the depth of her despair, I felt a profound sadness for the path she had taken, driven by the ghosts of her past, and a desperate need to be acknowledged. Just as I began to feel the semblance of normalcy creeping back, a small, crumpled piece of paper on the kitchen counter caught my eye. I unfolded it with a sense of foreboding. The handwriting was familiar, jagged and hurried. "You only know what they wanted you to find." My heart sank. The note was a chilling reminder that perhaps the story was far from over. My name is Claire, and I'm a graphic designer who, until recently, thrived in the hectic pace of city life. But the relentless noise and constant rush began to wear on me, pushing me towards the promise of peace in the suburbs. It was about a week after I moved in when I first noticed the car. It was an older model, a dark, nondescript sedan that seemed oddly out of place in our picturesque street lined with modern SUVs and cheerful minivans. At first, I saw it parked a few houses down from mine. I didn't think much of it. After all, it could have belonged to a visitor or perhaps someone lost, looking for another address. But then I saw it again, and again, always appearing during the late hours when I returned from work, its dim headlights flickering off as if it had been waiting just for me. The sight of it started to unsettle me, a stark contrast to the safety I felt during the day. Each time I passed, I couldn't shake the feeling of eyes watching me from behind its tinted windows. I told myself it was nothing, just a neighbor I hadn't met yet, or a coincidental pattern. But as the days went on, the presence of that car began to feel anything but coincidental. Each evening, as the shadows stretched longer across the neighborhood, the car's appearances became more frequent. Its presence was like a dark cloud, one particularly still night. While the only sounds were the distant barks of neighborhood dogs and the gentle rustle of leaves, I saw it again. This time, something was different. A shadowy figure sat inside. The glow of a camera flashed briefly, illuminating the car's interior as it captured images of my house. My heart pounded as I watched, frozen in disbelief. The audacity to invade my privacy so blatantly was shocking. No longer could I dismiss this as mere coincidence. Fueled by a mix of fear and anger, I decided it was time to confront whoever was harassing me. I threw on a coat and marched out the door, my footsteps firm and resolute on the pavement. As I approached, the car's engine roared to life and it sped away, disappearing into the night before I could get a clear look at the driver. Frustration surged through me. This had to stop. The next morning, I spent the day installing security cameras around the perimeter, covering every conceivable angle. I also reached out to the local neighborhood watch, explaining my situation. They were sympathetic and promised to keep an extra watchful eye. Feeling slightly more secure, I began documenting everything, maintaining a log of dates and times the car appeared. I knew I needed solid evidence if I hoped to get any help from the police. Days passed, and the cameras became my silent sentinels. One evening, as I reviewed the footage from the cameras, my blood ran cold. The footage showed the figure from the car, hood drawn over their head, cautiously approaching my front door. I watched, horrified, as they slipped something into my mailbox before hastily retreating. My mind raced with possibilities. What did they leave? Was it a threat? A warning? I paused the footage, took a deep breath to steady my nerves, and went to check the mailbox. Inside, I found an envelope containing several photographs. With trembling hands, I spread them out on my kitchen table. They were photos of me, taken over the past few weeks. There I was at the grocery store, walking in the park, sitting in my backyard, moments when I was lost in thought, believing I was alone. Each photo was a moment of false solitude captured by an unseen observer. Who was this person? What did they want from me? The photos offered no clues, just the chilling evidence of my stalker's obsession. The night air was chilly, carrying a whisper of the coming autumn. It was close to midnight when I saw the familiar dark sedan creep slowly down the street and stop in front of my house. My heart thudded painfully against my ribs. This was it. The moment of confrontation I had both dreaded and desperately needed. As the car door opened, I gripped my camera, steeling myself for what was to come. The figure that stepped out was shrouded in a dark hoodie, their face obscured. I didn't hesitate. I flung open my front door and stepped out, camera raised. The flash sliced through the darkness as I took his picture. The man recoiled slightly, a hand rising as if to shield his eyes, then lowered it, his posture relaxing into something unnervingly calm. "Claire," he said, his voice unsettlingly familiar. "You don't understand. I'm not here to harm you. I'm here to show you." His words sent a shiver down my spine. "Show me what?" "Your house, Claire. This place has secrets," he replied, taking a step closer. I instinctively stepped back, my finger poised over the camera button. It was once home to Jonathan Merrick, the unsolved mystery of this neighborhood. He vanished without a trace, they say, right from this very house. Don't you see? We're connected by this place. My mind raced. Jonathan Merrick, the subject of local ghost stories, a man who disappeared decades ago, leaving behind a house full of unsolved riddles. "What does that have to do with me?" I asked, trying to keep him talking while I edged back towards the door. "You're living in his world now. I've been following the trail of clues he left behind. The energies here, they're unusual. You must have felt them. I can protect you," he continued, his voice earnest and pleading. "I don't need your protection," I said sharply, "and I want you to leave. Now." He paused, looking genuinely hurt. "Claire, you don't understand. There are darker things tied to this place, and you're in the middle of it all now. Whether you like it or not, your fate is intertwined with the secrets of this house." I shook my head, disbelief mingling with an icy fear. "That's not true. You're obsessed and you're scaring me. I'm calling the police." As I pulled out my phone, his expression changed, desperation twisting his features. "You can't do that. You need me here. They'll be coming, and when they do, you'll wish you had listened." His advance was swift, too swift for me to retreat. My back hit the door as he reached out, grabbing my arm. Adrenaline surged through me, and I managed to wrench free, slamming the door in his face and locking it. My heart pounded as I leaned against it, listening to his muffled pleas turn into angry shouts. Outside, the night had turned hostile, his shadow pacing back and forth in the flickering streetlight as I dialed for help. The line rang, and I prayed they would arrive before he decided to escalate things further. My breath fogged the glass as I peered through the window, watching him pace. The earlier calm had vanished from his movements, replaced by a frantic desperation. I had barely managed to send a frantic text to a friend, my fingers trembling over the screen. "Call 911. Urgent." The distant wail of sirens cut through the tension like a knife. I watched his head snap up, his body tensing as he realized what the sound meant. The promise of approaching police seemed to shift something in him. The man who had claimed a bizarre destiny with me suddenly looked cornered and unpredictable. "You'll see, Claire. They can't protect you from what's coming," he shouted, his voice laced with a chilling certainty. His eyes, wild and unyielding, met mine one last time before he turned and ran into the enveloping night, disappearing as quickly as he had appeared. As the red and blue lights flashed onto my street, casting long shadows on the ground, relief washed over me in an unsteady wave. He was gone, for now, but his last words echoed in my mind, a sinister reminder that this might not be over. My hands shook as I opened the door to the officers, the reality of his promise lingering like a shadow at my back. As the police scoured the area, I stood by my window, a temporary veil of safety drawn around me. Though he was gone, his presence lingered like a specter. Locking my doors and windows, I glanced at the old photos he'd left, each a haunting invitation to unearth the dark secrets of my home.